Okay everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another video on Gran Turismo 7. We're back with the latest two million credit guides that have launched today on GT7. So first up, we have Red Bull Ring in the wet with the new physics. And I have to say, it's actually quite enjoyable to drive these physics in the wet, I found. Now, we're using the Ferrari for this guide. You can use whatever car you want. The Ferrari, I think, is going to be very good in wet conditions at this track. That's why I'm using it. So yeah, we're going to go through all the details, especially with this track with regards to the wet lines. We're going to let you see them and show you where the grip is as much as possible. So to enter this, you are going to need to go into the sport mode in the top right hand corner there. So click on that and then you'll be greeted with the online time trial section. From there, you click on there and yeah, we're going to go into the Red Bull one first. So click onto that. Now, I haven't pushed this massively. We just did a few laps this morning, a little bit of a go, and then we managed to get ourselves down to a solid lap in the top 10, which you should be able to chase. Now, I predict this is going to go into a 1 minute 39.4 for the gold at least, so you do want to try and get that time ahead of that if you're aiming to get the 2 million credits. Now, remember, you can load up My Ghost, so feel free to load My Ghost up and challenge it on the event. So let's start this lap. Do remember to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if this video is helpful. It's always a help to me if you hit that like and sub. Let's see now into turn one. So going into turn one, you're going to see we're going to look out for the 150 board there. Now we're going to brake at 230 kilometers an hour, 143 miles per hour. Now we're going to try and keep the car in a straight line. Now keep your eye on the braking. Very important not to slam the brakes on now with these new physics. So you're going to see I go about 80% there just to stop the front tires locking up. And you can see we're taking quite a wide line because we do not want to get up on the curb. That's where all the slippery tarmac is. We want to go a little bit further wide. And then we're going to go up to third gear early. You see there at the mid-speed apex of 91 kilometers an hour. Up to third gear nice and early. And you can actually use some of the curb on the exit. Strange thing is, the curbs don't seem to be that slippery in the wet in some situations. So yeah, use the curb. Now accelerating all the way up the hill now, up into the next braking zone. Now you're going to keep the car over to the right. So watch this now. We're going to go over to the right hand side because this is where the grip is during the braking phase. Onto the brakes in between the 150 and the 100 board there now. And then we're going to bring it back over to the left as we're slowing it down because we're going to go onto slightly slipperier tarmac here now where the racing line is. But then we're going to cut back and we're going to try and take a tighter line to get off the racing line. So you're going to see here now as we go through the corner. Onto the power in second gear. You can see we're using traction control on level 1 as well. I find that a real benefit. It's so much easier to drive in these conditions with TC on 1 with these new physics, especially now. But you can see sticking to the right hand side there to get the traction off that corner, off the racing line. Now again, in the next braking zone, braking before the 100 board, 238 kilometers an hour there. You can see halfway between the 150 and 100 board. And you can see again, braking from the right hand side, bringing it over to the left. Now we're off the racing line and we're going to cut back and try and pick up the off line again on the right hand side. So mid-speed apex, 65 kilometers an hour. And now we're onto that throttle. Now I could have been a bit more aggressive here. I was too hesitant on the throttle. You can see the ghost pulling away there. Could have got a lot more aggressive, keeping that car to the right hand side, so off the racing line there where the grip is. And again, into this corner braking just before the 50 board. You can see the braking inputs going in there at 201 kilometers an hour. And we're going to again keep it really out wide. So this is where all the grip is, around the outside. Do not go on the normal racing line because that's where it's slippery. So sticking to this outside line, and you can see we can actually start putting some throttle in here at our lowest speed. At this point now, 107 kilometers an hour, and we're able to get that throttle down even in these wet conditions and then accelerate out the corner. And again, you can get right up onto the curb in these wet conditions and it doesn't actually invalidate your lap. You can go right up there and then again into the next braking zone, braking just at the end of the curb there at 178 kilometers an hour. And again, we're going to use that full width for the track because this is where all the grip is. You don't want to go on that racing line. You want to get it squared off as you're getting back onto that racing line because you're going to obviously go onto the line now, and so you're going to have to be a little bit careful now because it is slippery on that racing line. And then you can put that throttle down and accelerate through the corner in a straight line and then into the final two corners. Again, we're going to brake around the 100 board here, so you're going to see it approaching as we come up to that 100 board. You can see there we're going to brake just short of that 100 board, and again we're going to take a wider line than we'd normally do. Normally you'd be up on the curb, hugging that curb on the right hand side, but we're going to take a slightly wider line and use that off line grip that you get in these wet conditions. So again, slightly wider. Do not go onto that right hand side because it will get very slippery. And then here you can see mid-speed apex, and we can start putting that throttle on now as we power our way into the final corner. Now into this corner, we're going to brake very early. You can see onto the brakes early here. very early, more early than you'd normally be. And we're going to use some of the curb here to widen the line in. Now, you still want to take quite a tight line through this corner. So what we do is we take kind of the normal line that we'd normally do, because if you go too far out wide, you're going to run wide and get a penalty. But then we're going to try and let that curb help us into not using the normal racing line on the exits. You can see we're not going to go right up to the curb. We're going to get the car over to the right hand side where the grip is, and use that to accelerate out the corner and go over the line for a 1 minute 37.6, which isn't too bad considering we didn't spend too long on that one. Definitely potential to get that to a 36, so them times are going to increase massively, I think. So let's have a little watch from that lap again from the chase camera. You can really see the lines that we're talking about in terms of not using that racing line at this point now. So you can see sticking it out a little bit further than you normally go. Normally you'd be right up that curb. You can see just skimming the apex there, using third gear on the exit, and then again into the next braking zone we're going to see that real use of the offline grip. So you can see keeping that car to the right hand side now where the grip is. We're not going to that racing line, and you can see now we're hitting the brakes off the racing line. This is going to help you brake so much later. Then bring it back over, and now you can see how we're cutting back and trying to get the traction off the normal racing line. You normally be a bit further over to the left there, and the traction is all on the right hand side. Ideally I would have liked to have got the traction a little bit further over to the right, because there would be even more grip then. We would have gained a tenth of a second. Now again, braking on that offline and then bringing it over to the left and then cutting back so that you get the grip off the racing line. You can see there so much more grip on that right hand side, so you can put that throttle down and really accelerate out the corner. And again here you can see you're going to brake pretty much on the normal line here, because you want to take a wider line through this corner and avoid the apex, because that's where all the grip is, on the outside line where all the discarded rubber is. So much grip out here. Again, loads of grip on this outside line, enabling you then to get on the throttle better as you come across the actual racing line, and you get a bit more traction then as you accelerate down into these final two corners. And yet again for this corner, and we're going to do it again, we're going to go off that racing line where the grip is, avoid that racing line, and then that just gives us more ability to put the throttle down on the exit. Now this corner we actually take the normal racing line, but then make sure that we use the curb to rotate us in, and then we can get on the power and stick it over to the right hand side and go over the line for a pretty solid, it's not an amazing lap, 1 minute 37.6. It's good enough for gold, and hopefully it'll be good enough to help you get the gold as well. So next we have trial mounting, and we are in a car that I don't think we've hardly ever used before. You can see there the Roadster Shop Rampage, and we're at reverse trial mounting, not a track that I particularly know. Hardly ever driven this track, so this is not the greatest lap you'll ever see, but it should help you get that gold. So going into the first braking zone, we're going to use this little gap in the wall there as our reference, braking just slightly past that. So making sure you're on the brakes past that, and now try and make sure you brake in a straight line with this car. Don't be too erratic. Again, you can see braking aggressively, but then coming off the brake, and then as you get into the corner here, you can see that 80% braking going in. And then at this point, you want to get this car rotated right up onto this curb, because you want to rotate it in for the next corner. So you don't want to go in deep into this corner. You want to be as far to the left as possible. So you can see our mid-apex speed there, 80 kilometers an hour. And now we're going to start thinking about this next corner. It's important to now rotate it in from here, and then get it into this apex for this next corner. So you can see at the braking point there, 91 kilometers an hour. Then we're going to go up to third gear before we hit the curb, because that's where our minimum apex speed is going to be 75. And now we can start putting that throttle down and getting on the power. Be very, very careful with the throttle with this car. You do not want to just go 100% throttle. You want to feed that throttle in 50, 60, and then 100%, so you can get the power down into the next braking zone. So you can see now, as we go into the shadow from this tree, we're getting on that brake. Now, this might have been fraction too late. You can see I'm not the best at this track. I haven't driven it very much on this game. But we do manage to slow it down and just about get our right-hand tyre onto this apex on the right-hand side. So you can see here, would have been ideal. I've done it quite a few times like the Ghost did, right up onto that curb, and it gains you quite a bit. But our mid-apex speed, 93, probably would have been a bit higher if we would have took that curb line. And now we're going to have to carefully feed that throttle down. You can see there, again, 50% throttle, because if you go 100% with this car, you're going to be visiting the barrier. Now into our next braking zone, we're going to use the end of that massive rock on our right-hand side as our reference. You can see almost dead on level with that. Onto the brakes. And now this corner, again, you're going to see the advantage of using that yellow bit of curb, as we managed to hit this quite nicely here. So using the curb enables you to get on the throttle a little bit early. You can see our mid-apex speed there, 98 kilometers an hour, because we're actually going to get on the throttle now and start powering out the corner. And you can see how it's rotated us really nicely through there and able to carry the power down. Now, through this section, just be very cautious. You can't go completely flat, really. You probably could, but it's very, very risky. And then we're going to brake just short of this white line across the track now, and we want to get this car back over to the left because we want to rotate it into this right hand corner. So starting to turn it in now, you can see into this right hand corner, and I like to take a narrow line through this corner. Don't go too far wide out. Early upshift to 4th gear here as we hit our mid apex speed. You can see there 94 kilometers an hour, and then we're going to start powering out this corner in 4th gear. Again, just be cautious on the throttle. You can see again I'm at about 70% throttle. I'm not 100% confident of going 100% at that point of the track, and now it's completely flat out on this straight. Now this isn't the best lap you're ever going to see because, like I say, I don't really know this track very well. I've hardly ever driven it in reverse. I know the other way, but in reverse it's a completely different track. So yeah, it took a little bit of time to even get a lap in for me, let alone get a lap that was good enough for a replay. But you can see at this point, before we go into the brightest part of the tunnel, there's a little sign on the left there, and we're going to get on the brakes pretty much dead level with that. And again, braking in a straight line down to 3rd gear, and now we want to rotate it in because again you want to take a very narrow line through this cambered right hand corner. So you want to get the car right up against the leaves, the dust, kick them up, and then you can actually get on the power. You can see here already 112 kilometers an hour, our lowest speed, and now we're going to start getting back on that power and using some of this power. Just be cautious again. Yeah, you can see that 50% throttle going in, and then again just the tiniest little dab of the brakes before we came to that rock there, and then we're going to again put a tiny little dab of the brakes. We're not going to go aggressive. It's just a fraction of brake just to get a bit of rotation into the car. That's what it's really about, just to put a bit of weight on the front tires. And then again, as we're going through the corner, you can see our lowest speed in the corner, 122 kilometers an hour, and then we're back onto that power. And just be cautious here. Again, you can't just go 100% throttle. You just got to be very, very careful. And then up to 4th gear, and then just as we go past that white line across the track, we're going to again get on the brakes and start downshifting. Now ideally you want to be further over to the right. I was a little bit too in the middle of the track here. It would have gave me a much better line out the exit here, but you're going to go down to 2nd gear, let the car rotate, trail brake in, and then upshift to 3rd gear to give you that traction on the exit. And again, just be cautious as you put that power down with this car. It is quite lethal. So you can see there being very, very cautious, and now accelerating all the way up the hill. You don't need to go to 4th gear here. There's no real point in using that gear change up that will lose you time. And there's a little bit of moss on the wall there that you can use as your reference for the braking. So as we come pretty much level with that, we're onto the brakes here, and then 168 kilometers an hour at that speed. And now we're going to start rotating it into this tight right hand corner, and you're going to use 2nd gear just to try and rotate it in. It will help with the rotation. So you're going to see down to 2nd gear, let it trail brake into the corner, and then we're going to double shift up to 4th gear because we don't really need that 3rd gear. We might as well just use the 4th gear, and then that'll enable us to be a bit more aggressive on the throttle. You can see, so up to 4th gear, and then I can pretty much instantly go onto 100% throttle there because I'm not using that 3rd gear. Now into this very, very tricky section. This is actually really difficult. I found it really difficult to get the lines right. See, onto the brakes here, there isn't a massive reference really for that corner. It's just make sure you get on early. You can see I was a fraction too late. My right hand tire is just clipping the apex, but ideally you can take a little bit more off that line to rotate it in. And then again, you can see I'm going to go up to 5th gear before the top of the hill, because at this point here you can use some of the curb on the left, and then that will enable you to get through to this corner on the right hand side. You can get right up into the orange part here, so it won't invalidate your lap. You can see using massive amount of the curb, and you can then stay on the power in 5th gear and power your way over to the finishing line. A very, very tricky combination. I think a lot of people are going to find this difficult, so be very, very cautious with that throttle. You might even want to use traction control to make it a little bit easier for yourself. Might help a lot of people in terms of just getting the goal time. So let's watch that lap again from the chase camera. Like I say, I'm not the best at this track, but this lap should be good enough for gold. And you can see into this corner here, using that 3rd gear nice and early. Just be cautious on the exits of slow corners. If you're too early on that throttle, this car has a tendency to just want to snap and bite, and then that'll be your lap over. Again, this corner, it can happen very easily. If you get on the power too early before that little dip there, the dip unsettles the car, and again, you can really fly that car off into the barrier. So just be very, very cautious. This section here is just all about being very cautious on the power. Be careful you don't hit the wall on the left there. Frustratingly, I felt like I didn't hit it a few times, but it invalidated the lap because we just clipped it. Kind of annoying that a graze against it does invalidate it, but that's the way these time trial work. Again, using the tight line through that right hand corner. Again, we're going to do the same at the end of this straight for the right hand corner that's cambered in. We're going to use all that leaves and the dust on the right hand side to try and hold a very, very narrow line. But you're going extremely fast now into the braking zone, so make sure you brake early there. You don't want to be pushing the brakes. and then just let the camber keep your line through that corner. You can see right up narrow, camber helps us out, and again here you want to be just smooth through this section. I could have been so much more aggressive here, and I really should have kept the car over further to the right there to widen the line into this left hand corner, but not too bad. It was a smooth lap. It wasn't anything amazing, but with 2 guides being out on one day, it meant I didn't really have time to really learn this track fully and really push it to its limits. But yeah, hopefully these guides are going to help you out. Just be cautious here. You can see how I almost got it perfect, but then the car just stopped rotating. But this section was done quite nice. Managed to get it right up against the orange curb and stayed on the power on the exit all the way to the finishing line. But yeah, hopefully this helps you out. Let me know in the comment section if these both guides help you out. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you for more content again through the week. Thanks again for watching, everyone.